I think that opening up and giving, that lover at its fullest, I think that really gave me a lot of trust in the people around me. And
Why?
It's definitely the vulnerability that happens over very deep conversations, very personal things.
All right, guys. So welcome back to the podcast. We're here with Sam Ackland, and we've just been having some because obviously we do one-on-one coaching and stuff together. I help Sam. Sam helps me with a bunch of things. It's been awesome. Sam's been a long client for well over a year now.
Yep, about a year and a half.
So thank you for that. And we've been having some conversations in our check-ins, which have been really transformational. And we've just been chatting. We're people kind of need to hear this. Hey, some of this stuff has been mind-blowing. So hopefully we can remember exactly where we sort of talk about things and touch on some of those things. So yeah, tune in and listen to this because some of the stuff's pretty mind-blowing. And thank you, Sam, already for the vulnerability. Stunned.
It's all good. It's going to be some tears, some laughter.
So yeah, essentially for you, what have been some big breakthroughs, perceptions, awareness that you've been using or thinking about recently, which has sort of just helped you make some really good decisions?
The whole concept of leading with love has been the most profound concept or thing that we've spoken about, and to unpack that, we spent the better part of a year doing it, and it's just, I don't know, to look at the actions that you're making and the things that you're doing in your life, and to kind of relate that back to how am I leading with love? How am I being vulnerable? What are the things that I'm doing that affect people's life, that change people's life? Not only just for me now, it's not my own personal performance. It's, what are we doing to facilitate the lives around us? So yeah, lead with love is one of those things that when someone asks you how to explain it in an elevator pitch, you're like,
well,
give me an hour and a half.
We've got all the time in the world. So how did you land on lead with love and end up understanding that's a powerful tool? Because obviously everyone who's listening would be lead with love. That's obvious. But for us, it's sort of like an equation. You'd go lead with love, and then there's heaps of things that spread out into why that is so powerful. So how did you get there, and what were either some stories or events or things that you went through which helped you realize, oh, this is what it means?
Well, about a year ago from the last podcast, we were checking in about what we'd done so far, and we're getting the basics sorted out. And at that time, my son was quite young, and as we were saying back then, the reason that I'd come to you was to, I was good at my job. I was able to, do the achievement elements, but it's opening yourself up to vulnerability, to be loved, to give yourself the appreciation, that you deserve, not just in a vanity metric kind of way, but in a way of actually really, being proud of the things you're doing, intrinsically proud. And then also that then translates out, if you can give to yourself, then you can give back to others and that kind of thing. Which
the whole process basically dissolved your ego as well.
Yeah.
I'd love you to talk about that process of how that sort of come about.
I suppose the real deciding factor to acknowledge that I needed to let go of the ego was purchasing a new car, and then sitting back and going, well, it wore off after 2 weeks, and then you look at it and go, that's a massive liability that I know was not a great investment in financial terms, and not a great investment in emotional terms as well. But I suppose without doing it, then I wouldn't have been confronted with something that caused such change as well. So we found the order in the chaos eventually. But yeah, there's, that's the material reflection of a moment in time where we thought, let's get rid of this thing. Or at least understand it and acknowledge where it is.
Yeah.
And then try and integrate it into, doing good as opposed to showing up and doing harm.
And what did that look like?
The good or the bad?
Oh, both. What was sort of the transformation from this is this, here's all the pain points and things that I went through, and now here.
Well, I suppose when the ego was playing up quite a bit, it was all me. And then when things didn't go my way, it became, I'm a victim. Why am I not getting the things that I deserve?
How so? Do you have any examples of that off the top of your head?
There would be elements when, and I suppose most of these things show, well, most of my leadership tests or trials didn't happen in the workplace. They happened at home, where I am in a one-on-one leadership position. So, you know, Arthur would get quite upset. Arthur's my little boy. He'd get quite upset. And instead of me acknowledging that he's a young mind that needs to be shaped and encouraged and loved, I would sit back and go, well, just learn it, do it. Like, why aren't you listening to me? Trying to lead in, I suppose, a bit of a dictatorship way, trying to force my way in, but because he doesn't know fear and doesn't know anger and doesn't know those elements or doesn't know the consequences of his actions, that leadership trait doesn't work. So we kind of, over, you know, weeks and weeks of conversation, we're like, what is going on here? And then how can we, I don't know, integrate something new or try something new, and then build on that and develop that. Yeah,
and to show up with compassion and empathy. And what was it? How'd you get there? What were those things?
Oh, it was only like this has been a long-standing element to try and unpack this, a very long-standing element. But there was kind of a point that was only recently, a couple of weeks ago, where I can address a lot of elements in my childhood head on. And I had a great childhood. I got two very loving parents. They did separate in my younger years, but there was no traumatic, no car crash, no craziness that happened in that regard. But there were still elements that I needed to seek closure on. So there was multiple ways to go about it, and you can, you know, address certain things head on. But the most profound experience recently has been a 3-hour one-on-one breathwork session. With the great, is it Julie Way?
Yeah, with the great Julie Way. She's been on the podcast. Everyone listening. I'll see if I can get a link, put it somewhere around here so you can listen to that podcast. Well, she's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, she's so good at what she does.
Yeah, she's unreal. She's just a great spiritual leader. And it was fantastic just to, because quite often with these inner work things, they don't happen overnight. You don't get a change, you know, you don't get instant gratification from it. But this is one of those things that you actually do.
You were ready for this point though.
Exactly.
Just to put in, like, it took so much time to figure out. There was parts of yourself that, you know, as a kid that you just like, okay, I need to be told that, like, you're proud, like, I'm proud of you, is what, like, you needed to be told. And we sort of just had to look at a few things in terms of, okay, well, you can either ask for it directly and see how that goes. You can learn to just completely let go yourself. You can do some sort of ceremony or initiation ceremony where it's like, okay, I can write down in a complete letter, burn it, or give it to the person, whatever. Or you can do something, you know, like a breath work or something. And we tiptoed around so many of those for so long and tried a few to see if they work, but none of them were really like working or doing anything. And then that's why when we led to, all right, well, in terms of your own comfort, because everything's got to be like, you know, sort of aligned with you, you end up deciding and choosing the breath work with Julie Way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a lot about, you know, acknowledging the feelings and the stories and the emotions that not only I had, you know, the memories that I had, but also the way your mind creates or fills in the gaps with, you know, natural negativity that doesn't need to happen. So a lot of that session that we did was just very much, you know, acknowledging the normal things that have happened, acknowledging potentially some of the not so normal things or the way they've, you know, showed up in my memory, and then just letting go of it all. So yeah, you come out of the other side, you know, chuckling to yourself from the drive home, feeling very refreshed, very liberated, very light on your feet.
I'd love for you to talk about it. What was it like? Like what happened?
It is very much based on storytelling. So it's the session itself that we focused on was about childhood stories. The things that you remember, you know, as far back as you can remember, any stories about your birth that you know. And I'm assuming that's, you know, you're probing for, was there complications, other things that could have marked on your brain or your psyche somewhere of, you know, elements that, you know, are potentially a cause for concern. And yeah, we continued talking about different stories, you know, mum stories, dad stories, together stories, happy family stories, sad family stories, all of those elements, I believe, until Julie builds out a bit of a story or a journey that she can facilitate. And then the actual breathwork session itself is a very interesting experience. You know, you're laying down, it's very dark, very quiet. You know, it's trying to do that or err on the side of sensory deprivation, but it's very focused on that narrative, but not in a way of like, you know, this is my story, so to speak. It's, you know, the breath encourages the mind to wander, and then she facilitates, you know, certain amounts of memory or certain parts of a story to bring those things to life. So it's very hard to describe, but also totally worth it.
Yeah. Well, what was the result?
The result was just the forgiveness for myself. So I've for quite a long time tried to do everything without failure, without issue, or, you know, not just to be the best person that you can be, but to be somebody who has no problems, somebody who does not make mistakes. And that was starting to take its toll on me, particularly.
So you put so much pressure on yourself.
Exactly.
To just be perfect all the time.
Yes, for no apparent reason at all. Just because I can. And that pressure really started to show up in some serious mood swings. And there is absolutely no need for those mood swings, particularly when we've got to a point where, you know, I quite understand, you know, the masculine archetypes. I quite understand how I show up each day. I know when I'm off. I know how to limit my space from the team and from family, and I know how to recharge and fill up my own cup. But the mood swings were something quite different. That was something that wanted to come out that, you know, was getting some airtime in a completely inappropriate way.
That you were, it would come up unconsciously, but you'd have no conscious control over it.
Correct.
Even though you know it was happening.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I knew it was there. I knew it was around. I didn't know how to let go of it. And, you know, a lot of the outcomes from that breathwork session were just a lot about forgiveness, I suppose. Forgiveness for myself to not have to be, you know, the perfect, you know, like black and white textbook style person. And also the forgiveness for people around me, because everybody's on their own journey and their own path as well. And my agenda is not that of everybody else's agenda. So,
And I really like as well, like I remember when we first started coaching, you had this goal of, you know, being the CEO of your own company. And then, like, you started it, you did all the stuff and you wanted to label yourself the CEO, but you're like, I didn't feel ready to sort of title myself CEO for anything because something's holding me back. I don't feel ready to step into that position, even though, like you mentioned, anyone in your company would be thrilled if you did. They would not, there's no hesitation, like, yeah, if you wanted to. But I love how you sort of had that, you know, awareness to be like, well, I'm not ready yet. I'm not sure what that entails. There's some stuff that I sort of need to figure out first. And after consciously we're attacking so many different things in terms of we analyze the hero's journey, we analyze King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and we'll get into those things. We analyzed, you know, your own psyche, your own personality. We helped you prioritize all of the things that you need to prioritize, consult with the Queen, and like organize all of your health and fitness and mental stuff and confidence and challenges and proving these things. We achieved this amazing balance, which I love to get to. And one of the things that like blew my mind was we were sort of right but wrong in the same time. So we were digging around, like, because we knew that the next evolution for someone who has gotten to, you know, a complete sort of almost circle of the hero's journey in terms of leadership and business owning is showing up as a leader. It's mentoring, it's leading, it's teaching, it's creating like your own basically group of Avengers, you know what I mean, in terms of like your team and stuff like that, and being able to share that experience with other people. And we kept looking, which I thought was so interesting, like externally to, all right, let's mentor some of these people. Let's network with some amazing people around Australia, which still doing obviously because you love doing that, freed yourself up the time to do that, which is extremely impressive. Congrats on that one. And like help other people. And then I remember us when we sort of took the hero's journey, went internally, went back to your business, and you're like, all of these things that I want, desire, that I've put externally, like I already have. I just need to mature them because I've already built my kingdom. Now it's time to expand. I'd love for you to like talk about that, because then we finally got to the decision where you're like, I'm moving my company interstate, and with all of this learning and all of these things that I've so much reflection, bro. Like, I'm so proud of you for all that. So much reflection to get to a stage where you're like, oh no, I'm like 100% ready, and I'm ready for this next journey. And there's like a clear path on the way there. And so I love you just like, explain that and talk on that. I know I went on for a bit then, but
That's all good. That's all good. Thank you for, I suppose, unpacking that element of learning that we've done. So, the professional title was something that, had we not done the work, it would have been an ego stroke, and I do believe that a lot of people do sit there from that position, as an ego stroke. It is the top of the hill, so to speak. And there's also an element of, as far as my respect for CEOs, and I'm not saying that I disrespect CEOs as a whole, but in my picture of the perfect CEO, there's someone who is very healthy.
The pressure on the self.
Exactly, yeah. But this is just the way I do it. Acknowledge that there's pressure. I suppose my mental picture of the ideal CEO is, someone who's very healthy, very in tune with their self, very caring, very loving, very vulnerable, and also, physically quite active as well. And to have given myself that title a year ago, I would have felt unworthy in my own caliber, and not in the perfectionist way. Just in even if I brought that down from being a perfectionist, it would still be quite crazy. So by getting rid of the ego, not necessarily getting rid of the ego, but understanding where and how these things show up. And then also understanding, a lot of the external drivers that we were talking about earlier. There was a lot of things that I wanted to understand about myself first before I would give myself permission to wear that title.
Like what?
There was the emotional mood swings we've touched on. Also, I suppose I still knew I had some learning to do. And that it's not exactly like, I will tick 5 boxes of XXX and then I'm ready. It was more there is a time that the maturity will come to give myself permission to do it. And I just didn't think that then, or didn't feel as though that was the right time. And then coming up here a few weeks ago and really talking to new minds and people who have a different way of life, and people who live completely differently to what my Adelaide community is like, because we're all quite similar minded and quite similar valued in our little area. And I think that was something that kind of opened me up to go, okay, I'm ready for the next step. In order for me to, continue my journey to be that perfectionism CEO, that ideal, that drawing or that, perfect artwork of that, what that character is, I could acknowledge that I'm ready to take on the challenge. And by almost branding myself in that title, encourages me to live to a higher standard. And not that my lifestyle is, or, a lesser standard, but it's more that it's a accountability metric for myself. Am I doing what a great CEO would do, or am I living and moving away from that?
So what's really interesting on this for any of my Hero's Journey nerds on listening to the podcast right now is, what is the step, Sam, that comes after atonement of the father or slaying the father in the Hero's Journey?
I have no idea.
You haven't done chapter 2 yet, Modern Leaders Accountability. we got like a high level group which we learn all of this stuff in after Overcome the Chaos, which is quite awesome. And I've just released chapter 2 in there, and we talk about the trials and tribulations as part of the hero's journey. And the step after atonement of the father, or the slaying of the father, which is a lot of dragon slaying stuff and coming back, is the hero goes through a change called apotheosis. And in the heroes, you'll see in every kind of movie, whether it's Iron Man or Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever, what happens is the hero goes through a part of the journey where they go through this big ordeal. They go through these things where it's internal, external, and then they show up, and then what they do is they look completely different. They have a new name, They look completely different. They got a new haircut. Spider-Man's got a new suit. Tony Stark's got things coming at him because he's, gone through some stuff. And I think Iron Man's is a good story because, he's got attachments to his parents. And if we use parents as a symbol, he's got attachment to his parents for whatever reasons. And once he goes through those things internally and figures those things out, then he's at this stage where he's like, cool, I'm going to build this gigantic building, get a new suit, and show up as someone new. So that's like the stage of, apotheosis, which is, I think, in the hero's journey, exactly where you at, where it's like, cool, I need to shop and to dress a little bit differently, like more professionally, to have that feeling within myself. And now I'm finally going to change like my title. So for you, what was the steps of the atonement with the father, the slaying of the father, or whatever it is? And the father, by the way, guys, is just basically a term for ego, essentially, once you've gone through a certain like an ego transformation in terms to get to that apotheosis.
Oh, that's a very, very interesting question to unpack. I think a lot of it for me was the symbolism of, potentially a symbolism, or trying to acknowledging or looking at the things that I do, or the habitual elements that I've got. The first thing that springs to mind in regards to that symbolism is the symbolism of the shoes that I wore, and the shoes that I wore were steel toe work boots, and as a sole trader going to a company, and then you start managing staff, and you want to wear the same uniform as your team, and feel really a part of that team, and the kind of a big symbol turning point in my mind was now I'm ready to wear dress boots as opposed to steel toe boots, and something so simple as that causes kind of a compounding effect on every other thing you do. Because I wasn't wearing the steel toe boots, my time on site decreased, my time leading other people to spend their time on site increased. There's a lot of these changing elements that happen from something so simple as a change in pair of shoes. So I can't make it any more simple than that one symbol.
No, I love it so much. And how did, obviously, because we talk a lot about transformation of the hero's journey to understand where you're at, and that one thing that you can use is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and those archetypes. And for anyone who's listening, if you haven't been introduced into this beforehand, an archetype is basically a side of your personality. And through studying, and if you haven't heard any of my podcasts beforehand, through studying a lot on this stuff, there is so many different archetypes and stuff out there. There are so many, but for men, they go through 4, which is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And for example, you can see Lord of the Rings have a very good show of this. Aragorn's like Return of the King, perfect hero's journey type of stuff, when he shows up as the king when he's Aragorn in the last show, but in the first ones, he's very warrior. Then when he meets that elven princess, he's very lover in there, and he has Gandalf, which is the magician for him, which helps him, make the decisions and plan out where to actually go. And then he's got his people around him, which help him get to there. So if you haven't listened to Lord of the Rings, I hope that has made some sense. We have 4 archetypes that we show up, either a king as a leader, a warrior as the get things done person, a magician is figuring out the plans or the GPS to get to something, and then the lover, which is the juice to the whole tank. Like, why are you doing anything if it's not out of love? And I can tell anyone who's listening right now, just real quickly, if you don't know what you're doing, and if you're not doing whatever you're doing in your life right now, if it's not out of love, you need to reassess. Straight up, this is Lead with Love coming.
Find your purpose on it.
Find your damn purpose.
And you better have love written in there.
Yeah, find your damn purpose. And what was it? Be a leader. Okay, what was it? Be a leader at your full potential.
Exactly.
So how did you use those as tools to sort of understand yourself and start taking steps forward?
They were a great start to understanding the psyche. They were a great tool to be able to kind of take inventory on yourself, to be able to self-assess, and also to be able to kind of play tangibly with something that's intangible. And a lot of our work would go, I suppose naturally I did like to be a warrior, and I think a lot of business leaders do operate out of that position. It's just make clear, concise decisions and move on.
That's king though. Making clear decisions. Warriors getting the shit done.
I suppose more making very fast decisions. Very not just
do this.
Yeah, not just
take
like,
an action.
Not just like wording and creating and holding space for people
get it done
with clear and concise decision. It was just shut up and do it.
And you do it.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd word ways around it, and your magician would come up and create ways to manipulate the answer that you need, or the result that you want. But yeah, by I suppose breaking down the 4 archetypes, understanding where their immature polar opposites are and their mature polar opposites, and then we spent like a few weeks on a few week cycle, and we will kind of test out each archetype and live it to its fullest.
Can you please tell us the story about when you just I'm going to love the shit out of everybody. And as well, which is really cool with Sam, this talking about the warrior, just as quick in my mind, was Sam was like, I think most business can do this, showing up as a warrior when it's taken over, wanted to work like 10 to 12 hours a day and was trying to find all of these things to do to keep himself distracted at work. And then you realize you're like, I actually don't have to, and I can just work like on myself to make good decisions. And then basically a few weeks later, you're like, well, I'm basically redundant out of my role now. Yeah. So I work 1 hour a day is all I'm needed. I need to use my magician now to create a new plan in order to actually give like energy towards, hence expanding into state, which I think's brilliant.
And that whole thing was holding space for the team, the people in your team, to do their best work, as opposed to just towering over them and telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And it's not a massive, you probably wouldn't see it if you were watching it in fast forward. It wouldn't be a massive change, but it was more just a conscious effort to let people come to their own opinion or their own answers.
And that sovereign king energy as well, if you think about a king and his absolute peak, and you think about the best kings, is they spend a lot of time just talking to people, chilling, thinking, so much thinking, because they love their business. It's all out of love. They love their kingdom, and they got to spend a lot of time thinking and analyzing, looking at things. What's the best decision next? And there's a lot of fluff in there, and you need that. It's like necessary fluff that's needed.
You need the clouded padding.
Yeah, you need that. You do.
You need airtime
to make those good decisions.
But the best thing that we've brought in, I suppose, back into the workplace, the best, let's call it king trait that we've brought in, is thinking and walking. It is profoundly fantastic. And I don't think people give it enough credit. It looks as though on paper it's a waste of time. But now we've kind of ritualized it into every morning we get everything set up. You check your emails, you do the priority stuff first, have a coffee, and then we go for a lap around the block. You get about 2,000 steps in, and it's a great way to kind of link in yesterday's goods and bads, and also start thinking and planning, getting excited for things. Give yourself some appreciation for things you have done, and then also start talking about where potentially in a bit more of a troubling time, what do we need to knuckle down on and get sorted out, instead of just sitting at your desk and filling up your brain full of cortisol. It's nice to go out, and I find that not just me, but I know that guys think a lot better while they're moving, while they're distracted. As you can tell, I don't sit still. If you're watching the video, you'll notice me just constantly fidgeting. But yeah, I think that's, as far as like a tangible tactic, I reckon the think and walk in the morning. Once the morning chaos is out the way, you can't just wake up and, or you could, depending on your work lifestyle, you could, get up and walk straight away. But I find that, get a bit of the stress out the way and then go for a walk and kind of clear your head, and then come back in and do some really good work.
Yeah, make some good decisions. So we'll go back to...
We came about that from king energy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But you got to have a reason to do it all, and that's out of love. So you got to figure out, okay, so what do I most love, and how can I give as much love as possible? And I remember Sam was like thinking about we were both thinking about getting an external mentee or something like that. They're like, let's inject this love back into the business. And now you've got these people that you're helping like move into state and paying all their wages and funding their way of life to help the business expand and grow, which you must feel so proud for.
Yeah, it's cool.
Wow, bro.
Just to change life, to give people careers is one thing that's really nice, but to actually have real big, meaningful change into somebody's life is a great thing. And I was trying to bring it to the surface on one of Jack, my business partner, one of our walks around the block, trying to bring it to the surface. And after a while, he was like, "Wow, you're really talking about changing people's lives. Like that's a really big topic at the moment." And after that, I know, okay, cool. Well, that was the road of excess that leads to the palace of wisdom. In as far as like, acknowledging, cool. We both know that that's happening and that's a thing now. So, not that we stop the action, but we don't have to talk about it now. It's become the norm. So yeah, I think a lot of that, I suppose a lot of that work, a lot of that thought comes out from actually expressing gratitude for the people in the team, the people around us. And that's where we kind of led to that scenario of just openly like pouring out of the giving cup of like, everybody have some love.
But also like, taking the time to be grateful of yourself and acknowledging it's like, I actually am in the position to do this. And as a good leader, I'm not just responsible for, the job, as in like, here's your tasks, get these things done. It's like, literally money's an energy, and I'm financing this person's entire livelihood that's putting their kids through school. That's helping, like, literally it's feeding them, it's their entertainment, it's their holidays, it's their love to their partner, it's the removal of stress and all these things, because obviously you want to pay your employees as much as they can, especially if they're doing like a real good job. And I think it's actually acknowledging that you're not just like as a leader, you're not just their boss or the manager, but like you're also sort of like, in quotations, almost like their own personal development coach to help them out. Like, because you've got great financial knowledge and stuff as well. So you're like, this is something that you could do with finance or with your properties and these things. And we'll figure this out together because I don't want you to have stress, because I need you to do the best work. So it's like, it's taking the responsibility of the whole person's livelihood and wellness, like into your own hands, and using all the tools and stuff that you've got, that you've either worked or learned from me or for other people, mentorship, whatever, back into that, which is so beautiful, bro. Like, oh man, you must sometimes, like, if you really took time, I know you've probably done this, to like sit there and think about that in a real deep way, it'd be like, you'd just be overwhelmed with like the gratitude of it.
That's a good moment to sit on the plane and do.
Yeah.
Because there's not many other distractions. But something that's interesting about what you were just saying is that the giving to other people for me came before the giving of gratitude to myself, which was something that naturally you would think would be the other way around. You'd think, okay, I'll look after myself first, and then I'll be good enough to give to other people. But for me, it actually happened in the other way, and I'm sure it would happen for almost everybody. But it doesn't sound natural if it was, written down on paper. So that was something that was very important, that by opening up and expressing and, giving love, I was able to then give it to myself as well.
Yeah, sometimes hard to receive, especially leaders, man. So the leaders need to hear thank you enough as it is, and you got to say thank you heaps to even receive that thank you. Like, is it not the responsibility of the gift giver to give thanks to the receiver for receiving? Thank you, Friedrich Nietzsche, you goddamn animal. So I would love to go back to the story of when we went through that period, because we learned all of this stuff that we're saying right now after Sam went nuts. I'd love you to tell the story, bro. We had all the people to your house, and like, you were like, all right, so what we did was like, for this week into our next week's catch-ups, let's give love to goddamn everybody. They're gonna get
everybody. I was like, you get a text message, and you get a text message, and I love you, mum, and I love you, dad, and everybody can have this, and what's my sister up to, and even at work, he's like, that's great, you're awesome, this is cool, can I make you a coffee, what's going on, how can I help? And then I was like, cool, okay, my friends, let's go. Everybody's coming over for dinner. I went onto Canva, printed out menus, I fully went crazy, did invites, I created automated messages, with opt-out stops and things.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. What? Way too crazy.
Just using some serious.
Just in the friends group chat and things. It was I titled our house The Deck. I was like, welcome to the deck. Thank you for your reservation for 4 people. Just confirming it's 6 p.m. Rah, 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 rah. If you would like to opt out, please press STOP.
Did you how hectic did you go for making the meals? Did you go House of Health and just...
we're next to a really large food land, so I definitely went a bit crazy. And it was like, what did we do? We did Korean pork bowls or something, and had the perfect fried egg on the top, and the red cabbage, and it was just it was colourful, it was beautiful, it was all set out so nice. And then to take on that road of excess, I went to do it again the next week. And booked in I was going to throw a party.
But why did you do that next week? Because I think this was important.
Because I was in the zone of giving love, and we didn't, well, you might have intentionally, knew this was going to happen, but I didn't intentionally know that there was going to come to a point where I couldn't give anymore. That energy was used and needed to be replenished. I needed some alone time or some more quiet activities.
You need to receive either yourself,
correct,
family, whatever it is.
So I proceeded to, really lean into the love and lean into the giving, and planned a party, did the same thing. As far as like invites and opt-ins and all that crap.
What did that do to you though?
I was wrecked.
You're burning out.
I had to cancel it.
Exhausted.
I canceled it. I said, sorry guys. It's not going to happen.
But
I've gone too far.
I remember talking about this, and what was like, we sort of like went to the stage where when we had the chat where it was like, I was sort of like giving you the option. I was like, you should definitely say no to this, but I'm like, have the option, see how you feel, see what you think, whatever it is, because like, is this too far? Is you giving too much right now, not receiving yourself? And you were like, well, yes. And then I remember like an hour later, you messaged me and be like, cancelled it. Like, not doing it.
Because we catch up on Mondays. It's a great way to
I need to do nothing. I'm doing nothing this weekend at all. I am doing nothing.
So that was a really great way to understand how to give too much.
Yeah, but that also come like you got to like, flex like your lover muscles.
Yes.
And after that, like, after all of that, even though you put up boundaries, which a lot of people don't know, because people get caught in that stage of giving. I need to give love. Now we try that as an experiment, but people get stuck in that, and you were ready for it at that time. For you specifically, I wouldn't encourage everyone to do this unless you have this hyper awareness that we've had through all the check-ins and stuff. Like, we knew that's exactly what you needed to do to really like, let's get this lover juice moving, and immediately like went too far. Now for some people it could be doing it as magician or warrior or king. It depends on you individually. So Sam did get some awesome results, but it may not be for you if you're listening. But we were so accurate and precise what we wanted to do. And then it was very interesting that you were obviously strong enough because of your leadership skills and stuff to be like, cool, boundaries. People get stuck doing giving and they never put up any boundaries. You know how hard it is for people to be like, oh cool, so I've got 10 people coming to my house for a party. I've got this, organize all these things and made all these commitments, and then have to go, I remember on our chat, I was like, just cancel, bro. You can change your mind. Like, you don't have to go through
You know what's at play there though?
What?
The ego's at play. Because I went to all the effort of creating the invites and got the hype, and I love a hype, and there's a lot of people around here that like to generate a hype.
Pressure
pressure to perform, pressure to be perfect. And then to be able to sit back and go, oh fuck, I can't be bothered. It's not good, because it would be fine to perform for that event, but then for work you've got to then be able to show up and be able to give and receive as well for the next 5 days after that, and it's
and everyone loved it.
Compounding effect is too much.
It is. And like, everyone loved it so much. So as well, if you've lived and you're received, and like, if you're not someone who's confident with the acceptance of yourself, or you need to feel accepted from people, it's like, I'm so accepted by everybody. But you're already in a position where you feel accepted, you don't need anything else. So in a position, you're like, boundaries going up.
Yep.
Sorry, everybody, cancelling.
Yep.
You're like, oh no, I let all these people down. What a fear. Quotations, let people down.
Such a good group of friends that it can be like, all right, yep, sorry, not going to happen. And they're like, oh, man. Oh, well, next week.
Yeah, which is cool. So then how did that, igniting all of that like lover juice within you, is that challenge? Oh, that was so funny, guys. The stories that Sam was telling me was so funny. I remember during the week and shit, just loving the shit out of everyone. I think I got a message as well. I'm like, this is the best. But
it carries on, those kind of...
Yeah, how did it?
Break the boundary of telling somebody how much you appreciate them. The first time is very hard, and then it's very easy to let them know how much you appreciate them after that. So I think just take a moment now to message your mum and your dad and tell them that you love them, because you probably haven't said it for a while. And then from there, it flows a lot easier. And it's not just with that particular person. Once you've started to give that appreciation and that love, it just happens more intrinsically. It happens more naturally.
How did you show up as a leader better? Through love, like just understanding to know that and doing that. And how did that help you like lead with love? It
really put me into other people's perspective. It gave me the ability to sit in someone else's shoes for not just sitting back after something and be like, oh, okay, now I understand where they're coming from, but actually to actively sit there and go, okay, we're in a conversation about, something non-related to work, someone's personal finance, and to be in the position where I can think, what are you going through? How is your family reacting? Where are they coming from? How does my advice, or how does my opinion carry on and transfer into the outcome they're seeking? So that giving of love enabled me to put myself properly into somebody else's shoes right then in the conversation. So,
And now how's that worked out for you now?
that's been fantastic.
How?
It's just, I don't know. I
think the lover really ignited you. Like activating that lover archetype, which would be called lover activation, is how you would call it, really sort of got the wheels in motion for you getting to this CEO level in terms of like, cool, I'm actually like, I love myself. I love everyone around me enough as it is. And I'm ready for this new challenge. And I've got this idea and I don't have to be this ideal CEO of what I want yet. I'm going to start at the very bottom, like CEO level 1.
Yeah.
And whatever that role entails.
It's apprentice CEO.
Yeah, apprentice.
My own apprentice.
Apprentice CEO.
You know what? I think that opening up and giving, you know, that lover at its fullest, I think that really gave me a lot of trust in the people around me. And
Why?
It's definitely the vulnerability that happens over very deep conversations, very personal things, and not like personal things as far as personal finance or personal things as far as, you know, a problem at work or you know, having a lot more emotionally charged conversations with people, particularly those close to you, gives you a greater sense of camaraderie. And then from there, you can trust that, you know, you're all aligned, you all have the same understandings or, you know, the same or similar values, you know, as opposed to conflicting. And that gives me then the position to go, okay, well, I trust you to make the right decision. I'm going to go and make other right decisions for, you know, the company 2.0, or the company next year and the year after that. So, yeah, there's a lot of trust in the team.
How did that help you, like, not hold yourself back? How did that help you stop holding yourself back and really just sort of unleash yourself? Because I know a lot of people get to that stage where they feel stuck in their life. They suffer from distractions, shiny object syndrome. They feel like they can't move ahead. They know that they can't get vulnerable. They haven't, like, you know, they don't have purpose or anything like that. But how did, like, this stuff and internalizing this and assimilating it, how did that sort of activate you and give you a brand new motivation and energy to be like, you know, I am enthused. And when I mean enthused and filled with enthusiasm, for people who aren't listening, there's some Overcome the Chaos content right here. Enthusiasm, the Greek word for that, means possessed by a god. So if you saw someone who, for example, is killing it on the battlefield, they'd be like, he's possessed by Aries. If you see someone who is like, walks into a room and they breathe this sexual energy, you're like, oh, they're possessed by Aphrodite. Or if you find someone who's just got zest and power for life, you're like possessed by a Zeus or something. For example, that's what I mean by enthusiasm. It's this welling up of power to move forward for something. So, you know, how did all of these things prevent you from, you know, all of those suffering, being stuck, distracted, all that stuff, and actually ignite you with enthusiasm and energy to be able to, like, move forward and love what you do?
Whew, that's a big one to unpack.
Sorry, yeah.
I suppose the perfect word and the perfect, like, we've started running this like hashtag through our meetings and stuff at work, was just to simplify everything. So what we'd done is we'd really cast such a massive web to kind of understand me physically, understand me as my best self, you know, try to unpack a lot of elements and then to bring it all together. Let's call it hashtag simplify. We just cut down so many elements and started looking at the quality of things as opposed to the quantity of them. So that's the quality of conversation. That's the quality of relationships. That's the quality of the hobbies that I'm interested in. It's the quality of, you know, time that I spend, the quality of activity that I do as far as, you know, fitness.
You know what's cool? Sorry for interrupting. Please remember where you're at with that. What you're going to say next. Please remember that. Like, just take a mental screenshot. Click. But even just like acknowledging on you just saying all of those things, hashtag quality, was how everything you do is done for a reason. Like, you know why. We know the reason you do dirt bikes. We know the reason you go to work.
Yes.
We know the reason you shine up as a lover for your family. We know the reason, like, your purpose and why you're chasing it. Like, everything you do is literally done with intention, with quality of things.
It's all just been attacked with a masculine analytical brain. That's all we've done. Just
with philosophy,
every fucking thing.
Yeah. But we've explored the feminine in order to get there.
Exactly.
Well. Yeah.
And appreciated and integrated that relationship as well.
Crazy.
Because it'd be so easy just to ride dirt bikes and, be a menace all the time.
Yeah, very true. So please continue what you're going to say. Quality.
Okay. Simplifying everything. It's just been liberating. And to add on from simplifying, also kind of challenging the inner beliefs that I had, inner beliefs of, let's just say this is probably a bad example, but you have to eat breakfast before you go to work. And then toying with, intermittent fasting, and then integrating breakfast back in because, that was something that was very important to me. I've lost my train of thought.
Quality, simplifying, life could be business, love, family, quality conversations, relationships, all that good stuff.
Yep. Just, I don't know. Simplify is the way to go. I can't get out of it.
But it took ages to get to that position because obviously we scattered everything out on the table. But yeah, I think it's so impressive, man. Just touching back on what I said, that you literally have got to that stage where everything is done with intention. Like, and even there's even conversations that you have like with your wife and stuff that are like, okay, this is an intentional conversation that I know we need to have, and this is quite advanced. And a lot of people would either shy away from this or not do this. But because we understand the king or magician lover, because we understand the hero's journey, because we understand how your psyche works, because we understand all of the contents of your life and how they play out in different areas, it's like, this is something really important to do.
Yes, this is something that needs to be addressed. There's an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to go about, this could be a way that we're going to go about unpacking it.
Yeah.
So, and
then like trying it and seeing how it goes.
And I think coming back and going, that didn't work. Or coming back and going, you know what, that did work. Or even quite often by acknowledging that we needed to do something, by acknowledging that there was work to be done in a certain area, the outcome would manifest before the action needed to be taken. Because there were so many bizarre things that would happen where I'm like, I would really like to address this head on, and then I'd hold off on it and I'd kind of think about it for a while, and then the problem would solve itself just by it being acknowledged. So some crazy shit that happens out there. It kind of makes me look at the world and goes, this is not how they make it out on the media.
Damn. Well, what are like some crazy moments that you sort of had, like if you can think about the past couple months, you've come to Queensland, like we had like good chats, we had our check-ins up here, met some awesome people. You've implemented some new strategies into your business. We've had some epic conversations that I wish we goddamn recorded, but we didn't. And we've done some crazy action planning. You've had some awesome conversations. You've also learnt that, this language that we speak, which I believe that we're sort of trying to tone down even a little bit on the podcast in terms of symbolism and stuff, but is a language that needs to be, again, simplified for people because they may not understand how all of this works. But what has been sort of some experience for you that have been like sort of profound moments where you've just been like, oh, you know what I mean?
Yes. Only really recently, I've had this idea in my head where I've been like, fuck, I'd really like Dad to tell me that he's proud of me. Yeah. That's something that, I don't know, it just came to me and I thought, I think that would really help. So I've asked him.
Well, but for a reason you said that, sorry for interrupting, but the reason you said that was as a kid, it was like, okay, and I think so many men can relate with this. I remember even thinking about this, man. I'm like, when I'm a kid, and if son, daughter, whatever it is, I'm going to tell them I'm proud of them every goddamn day for whatever it is, just to, well, I wouldn't say every day. Everything that they've done that they know that they need to know that they're proud to hear of. Like they do something and they're looking me for acknowledgement. Tell them. But I think that so many like men are in a position because I believe that a lot of people's fathers in our generation, if I just think about this, I love talking about this conversation. Thanks for bringing it up. Is obviously with the wars, literally like Berlin Wall came down, was it 1989 or something? So World War II and stuff has been around for ages. End of World War II, which was literally like 1940s, 1945, we've been in this position where it's like people literally, I don't know if people know their grandparents and stuff, what they used to eat. It's like they used to eat a lot of organs and stuff, like a lot of people's grandparents, because food ran out. So people had to eat the entire animal instead of other stuff, which is healthier for them, but whatever, just to save on food. And that's when factorization of businesses come in and everything was factorized. So you'd go to work for 8 hours, which was basically, they had to remove slave labor because people had to get paid to do slave work, because factory work was actually slave work, and now people just sit in offices and work at things which is essentially like almost slave work sometimes, and get paid for it, and then they have to have 4 weeks of holiday just so they don't have mental breakdowns for whatever it is. But that has lasted so long, and people were just so grateful just to have like livelihood then. we're living in an age of pure abundance.
Easy times.
But our families, sort of, and our parents and especially our fathers didn't understand that. It was just work hard, go out to stuff, don't worry about it. The war's over. Let's figure stuff out. There's no emotional intelligence needed. When I believe in the 1800s with a lot of philosophers, and if you read some of the books written then, and even Carl Jung in the early 90s talks about it, and Friedrich Nietzsche talks about it. There's a lot of compassion. People studied a lot of Stoicism, and they learnt how to communicate with emotions. And I believe that was lost. It's coming back now. A lot of people learning about Stoicism and stuff now, control emotion and stuff. But they didn't know, I don't even know how many emotion words my dad started speaking until I taught them to him. Like to be completely honest. And if say with my mum, to be completely honest, like they'll be like, oh, I love you. And that was like, that there's no other, I'm feeling angry right now or frustrated. They couldn't communicate with
There's no
emotions.
communication around the feelings of emotion themselves.
Yeah. So out of no fault of, it's not our parents' fault. It's not them. They just didn't know that we needed to hear that things like were acknowledged and like they're proud of us. They didn't know that stuff. So we never heard it.
Yep.
So it makes sense for when you was a kid for whatever your parents were doing. It's like for you growing up now in the name of like the age of abundance, where you've got all these different things going on and expectations, and you need this immediate gratification because the world is so fast now. It's not like the 1950s where it's go to work, come back. It is, you basically need 3 jobs to bloody survive if you don't own like your own business or got a high level career, not a specialist in something.
And you've got to keep up with the Joneses as well.
And
buy all the material shit that doesn't make you feel fulfilled.
And you have to do that if you're in a material world, because it depends if you're moving your ego or not, because like depending on the tribe that you're in, it's sort of like, well, you have to do that, and you have to be happy where you're at, because your tribe is going to be people that are way ahead, and there's going to be people that are behind you, and you got to just enjoy that. You're going to be in the middle. And so yeah, no fault of your own, you had to hear that thing. So I think it's very important to acknowledge that, and I think a lot of men, I believe, can take a little bit of pressure off of their parents in that position, because they didn't know, and it was hard for them to do so as well. Like,
and still is hard for them to say. And I think a lot of young guys, exactly right, they would have a massive breakthrough if one of their parents just, gave them a pat on the shoulder. Genuinely, you're doing a really ripper job.
Literally. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, literally. I say this in a lot of Overcome the Chaos and Modern Leaders content. I say, and by the way, if you guys are listening, I run a group program called Overcome the Chaos to basically help you find your purpose and become the best version of yourself. And then Modern Leaders is sort of like the back end to that, where it's literally the high level studs who complete the program, who want to network with the best people as possible. We go through like a monthly thing, which is fucking sick.
And I'm catching up with one of the guys in about half an hour after this. We're going out for coffee and walk, and we're literally going on a bros date to walk.
The best.
And it's good in the calendar invite. It's just called Bros Who Walk.
Is it really? Yeah, that's so sick. With Adam Green, by the way. Shout out Adam. He's a world class stud, that guy. And
yes, so the
parents,
the way things happen.
Become your dad's dad was what I wanted to say. It should be a goal.
Perfect. The way, as we were saying earlier, the way things that start to happen when you don't need to address them directly, but they still like manifest out into the world. I did actually say, Dad, I need you to tell me that you're proud of me. And he answered in his own way, and I respect that. And then like within 7 to 10 days, other areas of my life started showing me that they were proud of me. Like my wife would tell me, and then you also get the answer from feelings from not things, but people in relationships. Like there was so many times that it came back to me, and I was like, you know what? I am just proud of myself. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for giving. Thank you very much.
Atonement with a father, straight up, bro. But like realistically and legitimately and spiritually and psychically as well. Let me break that down. I'd love to explain this real quick. You setting the intention to say to your dad, like, hey, I need you to tell me that you're proud of me.
Which took a lot of work. It takes a lot to get to ask that question.
That's some kahunas, man. Especially like in a relationship like yours and your dad's stuff. Like people don't know. It's a long story to get into. Everyone has a different relationship with their parents and stuff. But for your case, that took some serious kahunas for you to say. Remember you sent me the message like, holy shit, I can't believe I just said this to my dad.
I suppose a lot of guys don't have barely ever have an emotional conversation with their old man. When do you ever talk about your emotions with your old man? You might talk about a breakup, But that's a time of crisis. You know, you don't go back to dad and go, "Oh, hey man, how you going? You know, I'm feeling a little bit sad today."
Yeah.
When was the last time you said that to your old man?
Oh my God. It's so crazy because in Overcome the Chaos, there was a period in there when we were talking about becomes your dad's dad, and everyone in the group was sending their dad's hectic messages. Dude, hell love. And they're like, dude, my dad told me he loved me and he acknowledged me. He's proud of me. He's never said that before. What the shit? And I say that in terms of, I love to explain this because I think it's very powerful. I think the goal is what you need to do to heal generational trauma and all these things is, as a modern leader, and what you did like sort of perfectly, there's so much to talk about, break this down. Essentially what you want to do is become your dad's dad because he hasn't got the love he got from his dad for certain things. And if you can show up as that person and inspire your dad and help him heal his traumas by being the one who takes responsibility for him, then he'll be in a position where he'll be able to give the younger you the love that he needs in order to move forward and be the best version of yourself, going through atonement with the Father, which is what I mentioned beforehand, your attachment to ego. And the reason that you're attached to a certain ego is because of the relationship with your dad. And now that you've slayed that part of the dragon or the ego in the hero's journey, now you're at that stage of apotheosis where it's like, cool, I can show up as a better leader. I'm going to get a brand new haircut, make myself buy some new shoes and even crush the CEO position even more. Level 2, baby. But that is sort of done out of the position of really understanding and giving yourself total responsibility to do that. Because I've talked to a lot of people before and be like, and we even had this conversation. It's like, yeah, but why do I need to take responsibility for my dad's shit? Like, shouldn't he just take responsibility for it? Like, and it was, come on, man.
Aren't we supposed to be fixing me?
Yeah, no, yeah.
That's the victim problem in itself. It's the victim.
Yeah, and it's your. But it's like the thing that comes down is it's like, well, it's your responsibility. Why? Because it is. It's your life.
The king in his fullest creates the safe space for everybody around him.
He creates his own world.
He's your father.
You got to be responsible to literally create your own world, and you have the influence to do that with every action you take. Energy in motion, emotion, and to do that, you need to change your environment, change your situation, change something up, put something into a practice. So as we get back to, you set in the intention, literally just to say to your dad, energy in motion, which is, for some people, moving a new job, changing a new gym, whatever it is. Energy in motion for your dad. You saying, hey dad, I'd love to, I need you to tell me that you're proud of me and I'd love to hear that. Literally sets the intention when you're like, I'm so ready to receive. He may not be ready to give in a way that you need or could explain or have energy to explain to him for, but you've set the intention there, which is put energy in motion, which is you're starting that process of atonement of the Father in the hero's journey. And of course, what's going to happen from then is law of attraction. Stuff's going to start happening because you've just put it out in your own brain. And then you're going to show up a little bit differently and be a mirror in certain things and like, well, if I didn't hear it from here or this is going to make me show up differently. And the next minute, boom, wife tells you proud of you. Boom, someone else. And you're going to be more receptive to it because it's in your brain. You need it. You're actually going to hear it. So a lot of people could tell you sometimes and you won't hear it because you haven't set that intention. But now you can hear it. You can receive it. You can assimilate it and then integrate it. And then next step, baby. Sorry, I got pumped.
That's so good. I suppose the next step, once you've kind of addressed some of those elements, you know what happened in the past 24 hours? Yesterday I was at the service station and filling up with fuel. There was a delivery guy in front of me. I gave him like a nice, a greeting. Instead of just ignoring people, I was like, oh, there you go. By the time I got into the store to pay for the fuel, he turns around to me and goes, have you got a wife or partner? Just like in a bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. And I was like, yeah, I've got a wife at home. And he's like, here, take these flowers. I was about to put them in the bin anyway. And I'm like, oh, thank you, kind sir.
What?
And then,
what?
So I leave them on the bench because I've just flown in to the Gold Coast this morning from Adelaide. So I leave them on the kitchen bench. Kate's like, oh, they're nice flowers, rah, rah, rah. She was very appreciative of the gift. Then this morning, I hop off the plane and the guy at the car rental place is like, oh yeah, by the way, mate, we had to upgrade your car because we wanted it back in Brisbane tomorrow. So here's the keys to the next model. I was like, oh. Thank you, kind sir.
Thank you.
And all I'm doing through this, I suppose, is just opening up dialogue that you wouldn't usually give the effort to for other people. Like I'm having a good quality conversation with the guy who's, processing my rental car, and he's saying he must be, receiving my gift of good energy, and he's just like, you know what? You can have a nice car today. Yeah, there's a lot of compounding effects from It's all leading with love, really.
Back at it again. And one thing that I say as well, which is really what people, in terms of, being a good leader, being a good parent, whatever it is actually understanding what the best version of yourself looks like, so that you're in a really good energy of the time. Like you just said then, giving the gift of good energy. So you have a responsibility, especially as a leader, if a lot of people rely on you, to be in good energy all the time. Mood, all that stuff. If you're overworking, your mood's going to be down. If you've got too much pressure on yourself, your mood's going to be down. If you've got all these expectations to meet, your mood's got to be down. If you're not sure in your clarity or direction or where you're going with life, your mood's going to be down. But you do. You've done all that inner work. You understand all the things. You take time to be still. Go for walks. You know that in the back of your mind, thinking and decision making is the most important thing. You understand being a leader is, especially in your position, once you've got there and you've earned it and you've earned the right to do so, is like a really good CEO in your role description has got great relationship with your family. Because if you're trying to show up as a leader and if you don't have a great relationship with your family, how are you going to show up as a great leader at work?
So it's like Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life, isn't it? Get your house in order.
He does say that, one of the rules. Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if that relates 100%, but no, it does. It does.
In the, as far as your job description goes, or the tangible elements that you've written for the person that you want to be is the whole concept of that leading with love and that being in that position of power, but not in a bad sense of power, is that you do have a responsibility for your family, and having those elements in perfect harmony encourages you to then be, or enables you then to be a better leader in the workplace as well, and vice versa.
Oh, yes. Good moods
together.
Yeah, literally. But it's so good when like, you understand that, you just have a responsibility to be the best version of yourself. And if you don't know how to get there, try and overcome the chaos, because
jump in and see you in 8 weeks.
But seriously, like I obviously have a personal program for that, which helps people out. If they resonate with this, reach out. If not, and you don't understand any of these things, whatever, get yourself your own coach so you can figure out like whatever it is. Shout out Mikkel Kuhar, he's a beast at this too.
Yes.
He's starting up a
and
program.
He was in Adelaide the other day. Stumbled into my gym. What
Crazy.
A gentleman.
Yep. He is also an absolute stud as well that you could reach out for that too. And just figuring like those things out and jumping on a program that resonates with you to become the best version of yourself, to figure out your own mind psyche, so that you can put yourself in a good mood majority of the time. And then when bad moods and bad emotions come up, you understand to just take them in and feel them wholeheartedly to process.
Yep. And how to recharge from those feelings as well. Yeah. What are the little things I can do to kind of make myself feel better so that I can come back better tomorrow?
Celtic salt.
Yes, heaps of Celtic salt.
Celtic salt, not masturbating. It makes me feel alive. You're just replacing what you put in and you're not putting it out. It's like Gatorade, except you're not exercising. Jeez. So, just in terms of, to start wrapping the podcast up now, I could go on for days, but like, what do you think is just some of the biggest lessons that you yourself use that you could share with everyone who's listening to help them? Because obviously there's a lot we can go with here. And one thing that I would say personally would just be like, learn some deep, serious self-awareness and spend actually, because a lot of people say, oh, there's a little practical tool. There's this little practical tool here. I sort of take like, it's a lifetime approach of learning. So start dedicating the part of your life to actually learn all of it. And that's just a massive self-awareness, personal development journey. Pick someone, roll with it. That's what I would like to say.
Take the hardest things, trigger. Acknowledge when a trigger happens. Acknowledge when you get really, really fucked off with something, and then try and unpack it. That's where you start.
Yeah.
And then work your way out from there. And then take the things that aren't so bad, and then unpack those. And then the things that are okay, and unpack those. Then unpack the really good things. And you go, okay, cool. Yep.
Decisions.
I kind of understand this now. And then simplify it.
and then check in with your emotions as well when you learn how to feel things. I'm feeling like the Grinch.
Yes.
One thing we didn't even get to touch on as well was just really impressive that Sam's done is he's completely like transformed his relationship with alcohol through all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, and it's reintegrated now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
How beautiful is it? You're living in the promised land.
And look, it doesn't come without its hangovers. But it's not a drink for distraction. And it's not a drink because you're bored.
Yeah.
Which is a very easy habit for guys to fall into. It's like, how do I hang out with my mates? What can I do with my friends? Let's go to the pub. And then before you know it, it's, 10, 2 o'clock in the morning maybe, before you come home. So establishing that there was some habits that I wasn't happy with and I could perform better without having those hangovers frequently. So taking it away and then reintroducing it gave it kind of it's not giving it the power. Like if you take it away and don't do it ever, it kind of puts the power in the substance or whatever it is. So kind of reintroducing it goes, you know what, I'd really enjoy having a gin and soda here and there, and so be it. And if Kate and I want to have a glass of wine, or we want to celebrate with somebody, or I want to sit around the fire with some mates and actually do reenact the caveman, old principles of life and sit around and talk shit, then I will, perform those. We'll perform that role, do that, have that for fun.
It's cause a celebration, man. Drink to remember, not to forget. Friedrich Nietzsche touches on this again as well in his book, A Birth of Tragedy. He talks about the relationship of, we could call them archetypes, masculine archetypes, king, warrior, magician, lover. There's another two archetypes out there, by the way, that Friedrich Nietzsche talks about. One's called Apollo and one's called Dionysus. Apollo is the god of structure, order, follow the rules, do everything right. You know what I mean? It's very like, ding, ding, you didn't do this right, you're not beautiful, whatever. Like, piss off, he's very pedantic and scoffs his nose up at people doing things. Dionysus is the god of grapes and stuff. He's the one who, when Midas went, I want to turn everything to gold, he was like, well, there you go. And then next minute, Midas touched everything that turns to gold, turns his daughter and his family into gold. But someone helps him figure all of that out. It's not actually a sad story. He figures it out at the end, and Dionysus goes, well, there's a lesson, right? They told you, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it, baby. And that basically means know your purpose. But Dionysus is the god of wine, and all the gods keep him around in myth because essentially what he does, he brings fun everywhere and play, and he's naughty with things. And Friedrich Nietzsche said, to be completely human and to really integrate yourself is to master both of those: music, alcohol, fun, celebration, play, and then also structure, order, beauty and nobility, and having a good balance between both of those, which you have right now, bro. I'd just like to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
You're in a real good period for this. Sorry, I got a little bit philosophical then. That's the first time I've nailed that word.
It's nice to know the back end of it though.
Yes, right? And you understand those things, and understanding that's why it's so important. That's why I think myth and philosophy is so fucking powerful. But back to the main lessons before we wrap up this podcast. What are some of the other terms of main lessons that you could share with people that you'd encourage them to think about, do, whatever, that you've learned that's helped you, take the next steps to maturity? Is it knowing something? Is it taking action, researching?
Let's continue on from something. One of the elements that falls under that simplify is just honing in on what you really, really enjoy doing on the weekend. I picked motorbike riding. I had a shed full of every toy and hobby and everything under the sun. Hobby syndrome.
What'd you do with that recently? Wait, we talk about hobby syndrome all the time. Sorry guys, it's staying on. We talk about hobby syndrome all the time. If you know someone who suffers hobby syndrome, tell them to go to www.talktocoreybartwell.com. We'll sort you the damn out. Because seriously, so many people suffer hobby syndrome. Oh, I'm going to start fishing now, and then buys their fishing gear. Oh, I'm going to go camping now. Oh, I'm going to start up go-karting now. And then start go-karting. Oh, I'm going to start traveling now. And then it's like, and then it's all just, you got a shed full of shit, which Sam suffered. And all you people out there with hobby syndrome is like, find your damn purpose for the love of God and what you like to do for danger. What did you do recently, Sam?
Just before we jump into that, you know what I think, why I think you fill up your shed full of shit? I think you fill up your shed because like the old hunter-gatherer you is like, I'm going to go out into the world and I'm going to slaughter this material thing and bring it home so that you can be like, Dad, look how cool my shed is. Don't you reckon?
Dad, tell me you're proud of me all the shit I got.
Because like back in the day, you would have been like, you would have gone out, you would have killed the boar, killed this, and dragged it all home for your dad to be like, yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
So I think you fill your shed full of shit for some element of comfort because there's something else missing. And what I did was I got a 3 cubic meter bin and put it all in. Anything of value I put out on the road. We've got like one of those magical curbs. Like if you watch How I Met Your Mother, they've got a magical curb and everything disappears. So I put a lot of stuff out there. I had like 4 motorbike helmets, had like 3 surfboards, had like so many wetsuits, and I just kept giving it. And there was a guy walking his dog while I was putting some surfboards out, and he was like, "Oh, are they surfboards? I've got some young boys at home." He calls his sons. They come down. And I'm like, I've got wetsuits too. So I just purged all of that crap and just went, cool, if I'm going to enjoy a hobby and pick the one that I'd really like to do.
Danger.
And yes, I like it to be very dangerous. And that is the thing that, if I'm going to do something, it'll be that one thing. And we've given that one thing enough thought to go, that's going to fill up my cup. That gives me the elements of danger that I need in my life so that they don't creep in other areas. So just purge your shed.
And you pick that one thing. That's why Sam rides motorbikes, and that's the thing that he most loved. He loved doing it as a kid. Like, that's what he grew up doing, so he's very attached to that. So there's a lot of nostalgia and all these things. I remember, like, my old man, just helping him because we have the best relationship ever, and he's my best friend. And, the love that he gives me and the acknowledgement is, like, world class. I'm so blessed. But I am proud of myself because I set that up, become my dad's dad. And one of the things that he did, the same thing, was he was like, I loved riding a bike as a kid. So now he just rides bikes all the time, and it activates, and Carl Jung says this, he has a question in as Pathways to Bliss, Joseph Campbell talks about it. He said, what is the thing that you would do as a kid when you were like alone by yourself for fun? Now, you might not be alone by yourself, but what you did for the most fun was...
We're talking about kid, not 13-year-old boy kid.
Well, it's a kid. It's like whatever you do, like for most fun in terms of all that stuff. And yours is riding motorbikes. So implementing that into your life and getting rid of all the other bloody hobbies has been...
It has been, what is the one word? Liberating.
Yep.
Because you don't feel the guilt of, I should do this, I should use this, and then you never do anything. And then you just go out and distract yourself because you've got so much shit at home that you should be using. That you're like, fuck it, I'll just go to the pub.
Dude, that whole saga, like that epoch of your life that lasted for like 2.5 weeks, which I fucking loved, of Sam just putting up photos all the time of like throwing this shit out.
Yep.
We got the bin, throwing that out.
Marketplace.
Got rid of this. I gave around all this shit for free.
You know what's on Marketplace at the moment? I put my shed up for sale.
Did you? Did you actually?
No hits. I have had no hits on my shed. Now we're doing
when you got so much shit in the shed that you sell your bloody shed.
No shed. Shed goes. No hits on it though, so the shed stays at this point in time. But just trying to pull that simplicity into the whole of my life in every area.
How good does it feel?
It makes things easier.
How good does it feel, bro?
Yeah, now I can just think and act and do the right things and not be so distracted with all the other crap that gets in the way.
What are the emotions that come up?
What are the single word emotions?
Just a few of them. There could be a few, one or two.
Joy.
Yep.
Actual joy, not just like, this is fun. Like sometimes you sit there and be like, I don't know why I'm smiling. Actual joy. I met Didge today and left a 30-minute coffee with somebody and was like, wow, that was energetic. It releases so much pressure. It takes so much weight off of you. It's just fun, happiness, joy. It's all the things that you would probably look for in buying a flashy, shiny object that doesn't actually come to fruition. Or in the first couple of minutes of getting it where it feels really good, but it's just the adrenaline talking. That's the kind of... There's subtleties though, and they come on incrementally. It's not like don't just turn around one day and be like, I feel great and I feel great forever. It's just like slowly but surely things get a lot better and easier and more fun and more loving and more caring. And
how fun is that for the people who are suffering hobby syndrome? Them getting rid of their hobbies that they bought is giving them the emotions that they desired when they wanted to get them.
And you can give them to people
for free. How does that make you feel?
It's real giving. And they're really happy. And there's a little part of you that goes, are they starting hobby syndrome? It's not your job to help them. It's not your job to help them. Just give the gift.
Corey's. Send them to Corey.
Call Corey now.
Bro, this has been one of the best podcasts ever. Thank you so much for coming on. If anyone's got any questions or anything that they'd like to ask you, bro, or have anything, where can they find you? If they want to connect with you or network you, they're a business because you're in a position right now, you're networking all the time. You're hanging out with like some awesome people, leaders, and meeting people to re-jog your mind. If there's other people in the industry working on their business and, people who really want to be the best version of themselves and they're dedicated to, besides joining Overcome the Chaos, the Sam's Mind and in Modern Leaders Accountability, so everyone gets access to him in there. But if anyone has any other questions, where can they find you?
I'm a simple guy. Just go to Instagram, search Sam Ackland, Ackland. You will be able to find me.
Dude, well,
Reach out. I'll see what I can give. If I'm in a real big giving mood, who knows? You might get a lot.
you might get a couple of surfboards
I don't have any.
and a shed. You might get a
Shed
shed.
with a carport.
Is there any last words you'd like to say, man, to everyone? Or
I just wanted to sign off with a massive big love.
All right, see everybody. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, guys. See ya.